Hi, everyone. Okay, technical difficulties. I was trying to get some things together. So I'm here now. There's a live chat over to the right of your screen. So let me know who's here. Okay, I see Verla's here. Hey, Verla. I'm going to remove this green screen because that didn't work out for me. So I'm just going to remove this right quick and throw it out the little door thingy. So, who else is here with me? I think it said three people were here. So I know it's somebody other than Verla, but I'm glad you're here, Verla. This is my first time doing this. So, it's like, hey, don't know what's going on. Um, okay. So, is there anyone else out there? All right. So, anyway, we'll wait a few minutes. I'll tell you a little bit about myself. My government name is Stacy Woods, but my pen name for writing my book, Love, Patience, and Time, is Jasmine Jackson. Um, Long story, but Jackson is actually my last one of my names. I have several names. Long story. And so I've always liked the name Jasmine. So I decided to create a name, Jasmine Jackson. So that's how I created the name for the book. And then also, I was it was my first book. So I was trying to be why I came up with that name. Um, so I wrote the book 3 years ago. And no, not 3 years ago, in 2013, long time. But as a part of some things that I'm doing for myself, getting myself out of my shell, I never did a virtual book release party. It was always location and timing, and this was going on, that was going on. So I thought, well, why not? In the midst of COVID, and I actually thought of this earlier this year, I thought that in the midst of COVID, why not just do a virtual party, virtual book release, inexpensive, right here at home, and I can talk about my book. So I'm showing that we have three people, and Verla is the only one. Let's see if I can see who else is there. But Verla is the only one that said something in chat. So if you don't mind, give me your name, where you're living, where you're from. I almost didn't have it today, y'all, because as we know, we are in the midst. It is January 6th, 2021, and we are in the midst of some craziness going on in our country right now at the Capitol. So that kind of got me. I got wrapped up in that all day, and I was like, oh, but I said, no, I'm going to do it. I am going to do it. But anyway, so we do have three people. I'm just going to keep it going. So again, the book is Love, Patience, and Time. And the I was driven to write. They used to always have a subscription to Cosmopolitan and Vogue magazine back in like the 70s. And in those magazines, there would be stories. There were writers who wrote stories. And so I would always read love stories, probably was way before my time, way before my understanding of life. And excuse me, I just always read stories of love and what it was like to be in love. And as I became a teenager, I think my first love story novel, was Judy Blume's Forever. That was a teenage base, but it was always about love. And so I've always imagined myself marrying, having a marriage, and being in love. And so what this book came about, believe it or not, from many stories that I'd run through my head when I would walk around Stone Mountain Park. So I would walk around the park, I'd listen to music, and I would just have these love stories. The woman meets a guy, and things turn out to be really great. And that would get me through my 5 miles at Stone Mountain Park, these stories in my head. So then I have a friend in DC who had a friend who was also an author. And briefly, I started working with them. and started, theirs were more scripts. And so letting my imagination run wild with those scripts, and then talking to my friend, and he was writing. So, and then we started trying to co-write a book one time, and I still just play around with it. But then in 2010, I was laid off, and J. California Cooper is my favorite author. And those of you who know of her know that she is known more for her short stories than she is, she has several novels as well, but primarily she would write short stories, cute stories that would be lessons in life to learn, and just things that would stick with you, make you laugh or make you a little sad. And so that's where I came up with having a collection of short stories rather than just a full novel, because that way I could take all the little stories that I have been running in my mind and incorporate them in individual stories. And so in Love, Patience, and Time, you have, I think it's like six, you have one, two, three, six stories of relationships. And what I also wanted my books to do, what I wanted them to do, was to get us as African American people back to love. Because I just feel like somewhere along the line, we stopped loving each other like we used to, in the 30s, 40s, 50s. And as we were migrating out of slavery and trying to build our own communities, we were really tight. We loved each other, we looked out for each other. And just over the course of the years, I just witness and see us getting farther away from just really loving each other. So I wanted my stories to be reminders. It's always good when you first meet somebody. Those first years, first months and years, it's always good and everybody's all happy and everything. So that's what I wanted. I wanted to remind everybody of what it's like in the beginning. Not now that you've been with your partner for 28 years or 5 or 10 years or whatever, but just remembering remembering the good times. I always said, when you first meet, all of those, hey Carla, all of those are logs in the fire. Your times, your travel times when you're traveling. So if your relationship extends past 3, 5 years, in the 10, 15 years together, at those moments when they're getting really hard and you're looking at them like, why am I with you? And can't stand them. If you go back to when you first met, those are the logs that you can throw back in that fire to rekindle the love in your relationship. So, I'm mushy. I'm the, love girl. So that's what I did in my stories. And so, as I said, we have six different stories. The first one is Cafe, and that's a really inspirational story. And that I based that on some thoughts that I was having, because at the time I was working a job that I really didn't like. And I always, have visions of what I'd like to do. So I kind of incorporated, I think I'm in all these stories a little bit, some more than others, I'm telling you now. And so Cafe was pretty much about a woman who was in between her career, and she meets this guy. And believe it or not, I really kind of came up with this again. It was some thoughts that I had been having, but then Alicia Keys' song, You Don't Know My Name, right? And if y'all remember the song in the video, she's speaking about most Def is in it, and she's a waitress, and she's, really getting into this guy, and is he going to get into her? So that's, I pulled from that what I had in my head, and I pulled that image from that song into the story. And so that was Cafe. And then Exploration, that's a little now I'll stop, let me tell you, I'm not Zane. I've read most all her books, but this is a grown folk book, so I do delve into a little, little bit here, a little bit there. No, not all of them are my experiences, so I'll tell you that now. Don't judge me. Uh, and so I have, so Exploration is about a couple who maintains their relationships and the joy in their relationship by role playing. I don't know if you've ever role played, but it can be kind of fun. So they do role plays. So that's what exploration is about. But he's asking her to merge into another little role play that she's not quite into. So I don't want to give it away. But anyway, and then Invisible Brother. That one, I think I pulled that one a little bit from my friend NDC, because you hear men, you hear that adage of men, women don't like a good man. They always want the bad men. So that's kind of what Invisible Brother is about. This is a brother who's got a good career. He's successful. He's doing good for himself, but he can't get a serious woman. But he meets a woman and, happy endings occur. So it's a really good little story. And then Reality Check is a story about a couple who have been married and they have really been connected to each other, but now they're going through a disconnect. They've had children, they've gotten married, they have children, they met each other in the gym. And so both of them are big on fitness, but now she's had a couple of babies, she's slacking off on the fitness thing, and, kind of just little stories that I've heard, how men stop liking you because you're not as fine as you were when you were married. So that's Reality Check. Second Time Around, the fifth story, that's about a couple that's gotten a divorce, and being able to get through that divorce and then pick up and start another relationship. And then the last story, which is kind of my favorite, is one of my favorites out of these, is Time for Me. And this is just what it says. It's a story of, and this is probably one of the shortest stories in here. And it's just about a woman who's been working hard and taking time for her, and just how good an outing with her girlfriends became. It went for one thing and it ended as another. So that one is pretty interesting. So does anybody have any questions on anything? Hey, Leisha. Hey, Shondo. Hey, Shanna. So glad that y'all were able to join me. This took a lot to just come out here and just step out and do it. So anyway, anybody have any questions? Before, I'm going to read a little bit of the first story, Cafe. So before I do that, does anybody have any questions? If anybody has read the book or one or two stories in the book and want to tell me what your favorite story is, just drop it in the chat box. That would be great. No? Okay, now Verla, I know before you have to hop off, I know because we talked one time about one of the stories. So anyone? Thank you, Leisha. uh Thank you, Shandul. Yeah, you know me, I'm always experimenting with the hair. All right, so Leisha, you read Time for Me. So did so that was the one that you read and enjoyed. What was your what did you like most about it? Just real quick. Okay, so while we wait for Lisa, Shanna is asking me, what have you learned from writing this? So me being the person that I am, I'm an avid reader, so I've read a lot of books. And Chandul and I started the book club, Imani Literary Reading Group, and so in that, I got even deeper into my reading and everything. What I've learned from writing this is that writing is really not as hard as people, as we kind of grew up thinking in our age. I'm looking at everybody that's on in here, our age group. If you were going to be a writer, well, you've had to have written all of your life, and you have to have a journalist degree, and you have to do all of that. And it's not true. And so that's what I've learned. What I've also learned is how to tell a story in writing. And I'm not saying my book is perfect. It's the first one. I'm sure somebody could pick it up and critique. But then what I've also learned is that it's all relevant, because I support independent authors, self-published authors. And so what I would do is I would buy, I would go to book events and stuff, or run across somebody that was selling a book, and I'd buy it to support them. And I would take that book home and be like, really? you calling this a book? And so, it's relative, and people have been successful in self-publishing their book. The first author was Elin Harris. I have his self-published version of Invisible, what was it? Invisible Man, Invisible Life, his first book. And that's when I first learned about self-publishing. So, um just things like that, and that you can reach people if you just have confidence in yourself. You can get the book on Amazon. Thank you, Shando. Right now I have a few copies here at home, but it is available on Amazon. And so my Kindle readers, you don't have to worry about a hard copy because you can get it on Kindle as well. um Okay. Let's see. And I know, and some people are saying it's been so long since they read it, they don't quite remember. Yeah, because it was in 2013. And I'm truly thankful for all my friends who support me and keep me going. So, Shanna, I hope that answered your question. I just learned a lot about myself and just, how to write, because, what I was saying was, so for a minute I offered an editing service for people who were self-publishers, because what I was finding is that, okay, first of all, when we first started Imani Book Club, Rashida Sloan was our president. Rest in peace. She passed away. And one thing I learned from Rashida back then, in like the early 90s, was that people could not get, African American authors couldn't get the major publishing companies to pick them up because Black folk don't read. In everything, we're under. We don't read, we don't do this, we don't get education. That's that general mentality. So that's why a lot of authors started self-publishing. So what I was starting to find was that you had people self-publishing books that hadn't been edited, that were, they were just writing, and it wasn't good writing. So I would offer editing service. I bought this book, the first 5 pages, how to write a book and have an editor really grasp the editor in the first 5 pages. So that's what I use as well when I was, editing other people's work, and then when I was writing my work. So yes, hey Yvette, yes, there is a fee to edit. Yes. Editors can be really expensive. So what I was priding myself on was I was giving a cheaper fee, because again, my whole thing that I wanted to do was check for grammar, check to make sure your story was concise. I have, I'll give you I'll give you an example. There was a book that I edited, and the lady, she was writing this story, and she wrote the story. She had never been on a cruise ship, but in her story, the lady was dating this guy who had a lot of money and all of that kind of stuff. And, he would just buy her a bunch of stuff. So in her book, she had that he rented out a whole cruise ship just for the two of them. And I was like, well, now see, uh, most of the time people won't be able to rent out a whole cruise ship, maybe a floor, or how about he just get a yacht? So that's the kind of stuff that I was doing. Grammar, and then, when you're writing, sometimes you might say one thing in um in this chapter, but then you forget that you said that in this chapter, and then 2 3 chapters down you're saying something different. So those were the kind of things that I was looking for, making sure the stories were concise and just flowed. Because when you read a book, I always feel like a book is a movie on paper, because you're visualizing, you're seeing the characters, you're seeing everything, to stay involved with the yep, Yvette, rent a yacht. You don't rent a whole cruise ship. I don't even think they would allow you. Tom Joyner does, because hey, he bringing a bunch of people on there. But yeah, so those are the kind of things I did when I edited. Um, let's see. Okay, so Yvette is saying, yeah, that issue of staying in first and third person. And so, yeah, I learned all of that as well, because you have to think. And I guess you're writing, Yvette, so let me know. But no, but you have to think. So when you're writing in first person. If you're writing in first person, you can only narrate from your perspective. You can't, you have to say, if you're writing about somebody else, like if you and I were talking, Yvette, and I was like, if I was writing my side of it in first person, and I would only be able to, I couldn't say, and Yvette was thinking this. I would have to say something like Yvette's expression made me think she probably was thinking something. So it's back and forward. It is back and forward. Anyway, so okay, so you got a few stories. You can put them down. Put them down. Hey, we can be like, what's her name? What's the two ladies that write that they've been writing together for years? Trying to sleep in the bed you made. I think that I cannot. Was that BB Moore Campbell? Anyway, we'll talk, Yvette. We'll talk. So what I'm going to do now is just read you a little bit of Cafe. Again, this is a story about a woman who is kind of in between careers and everything. So I'll just read just a few pages. I don't know where the saying originated, art imitates life, but it is really true. Alicia Keys' song, You Don't Know My Name, is written about me. When I saw the video, I almost fell out my chair. It's almost like she was somewhere watching my life transpire. I love the song and the video because it's so true. I've been working at Bailey's Cafe for 6 months. It's my first time working as a waitress, and I'm enjoying it. I have really gotten into the swing of things. Of course, my friends think I'm crazy as hell, given my education and past work experiences. I have an MBA and have been in the training industry for 20 years. That's my little experience. Starting as a facilitator, then moving on to a training manager. I have worked for several Fortune 500 and 100 companies, which is pretty impressive on the resume, but is the result of multiple layoffs. After this last layoff, I could not stomach another job interview, another promise of success and great benefits. I have decided to become my own boss and open a career development center for adults re entering the workforce. I realized early in life that I had a gift for mentoring and educating others. If any of my friends or families needed advice or encouragement, I was usually the person that was sought out. Having worked as an administrative assistant in the school system, my mother believed that I would have been a great counselor or teacher, but neither held an interest for me. My major in college was marketing because I had a strong interest in advertising. But after attending a time management workshop doing a summer internship at an advertising agency, I knew being a facilitator was my calling. I began to research careers and training, and the rest is history. Once Prime Cable let me go, I decided that my next step would be to follow my dreams while I put my plan into motion. While I put my plan into motion, I'm working here at Bailey's. Bailey Jefferson owns several restaurants on the southeast and north sides of the city. I always ate at his larger, more upscale French and Italian themed restaurant, C'est Bon, on the north side of town. They have a really great selection of pasta dishes, but his lasagna is my favorite. I would go there about twice a month and eventually became a noticeable regular. I often got preference on seating and occasionally a complimentary dessert. My mother and grandmother always taught me to treat people with respect, no matter what their role is in life, and I have benefited greatly as a result. I can't tell you how many times I have been given free admissions to events, parked where I wasn't supposed to, and given a number of freebies just because of a pleasant personality. We all work together and we all are each other's customer. Why should I look down on a person who is serving my food, opening a door, or cleaning up my mess when they are doing something for me? I eat out because I don't want to cook on that particular day. So it is a service for me to go out and eat and then go home and put my feet up. I appreciate having someone else cook the food and serve it to me. In return, I am helping them stay employed by coming to the restaurant, paying for my food, and tipping. It all works together. So I always smile and converse with any and everybody I encounter on a daily basis. It is a practice that has truly paid off. I encouraged my girls to have one of our monthly outings at Sabone, and they loved it, so we kept the restaurant in our rotation. On our third visit, Bailey came over and introduced himself. He commented on the frequency of my visits and thanked me for my patronage. He gave us our meals and drinks free that night. He left his card and told me to call him if I was ever in need of anything. I never called, but for the next year, every time I came in, we always held small conversations. I found out he was married with 3 kids and 5 grandchildren. He had been in the restaurant business for over 40 years. He was a very nice man, and as it turns out, a good person to know. The day I was laid off, I went to Sabon, and instead of getting a table, I went straight to the bar with the idea of getting smashed and calling a cab to take me home. Surprised to see me sitting at the bar, Bailey came over with a look of true concern in his eyes that was very touching. I told him what happened and expressed my frustration with life in corporate America. I shared that I felt like a mouse spinning around in that little wheel going nowhere. I truly know how you feel, Bailey said. Sabone was started from some of the same frustration. I didn't experience layoffs. I just grew tired of helping someone else be successful and not be appreciated. Yes, not being appreciated is even more frustrating than being laid off, I said as I took another sip of my drink. Bailey gave me a look of concern and calmingly placed his hand on my back. I have a wait staff position open if you're interested. I nearly choked on my drink. I felt appalled that he would offer me a job as a waitress, and then I felt a little hypocritical. While I truly am acceptable of everyone, I have invested too much time and energy in my education and career. I couldn't see myself working as a waitress. I never have worked as a waitress, I replied, trying not to offend him. I don't know I'm cut out to carry trays and get orders correct. I have watched your servers and it doesn't look like an easy job. Being a waitress is more about personality than carrying server trays and getting orders correct. We have an excellent training program and you have a wonderful personality, so I'm sure you will do fine, Bailey said. I'm not so sure, Bailey, I replied. I didn't know how to tell him that this position would not fit in my social circle. I couldn't even imagine telling my girls that I had accepted a job as a waitress. my my staff made close to 25,000 last year in just tips, Bailey said as though he could read my mind. This put them at an annual salary of 33,000. I almost laughed in his face at first, given this is a third of the salary I made at Prime Cable. Bailey, I can't tell you how much your offer means to me. You're a wonderful man, I said as I smiled appreciatively. Bailey smiled at me as he stood to leave me sulking at the bar. I will give you a little time to think about it. I am not in a big hurry to fill the position. Thanks, Bailey, I said as my eyes filled with tears. You are truly welcome. Your presence in my restaurant is always welcome. Please think about my offer. It may not be the salary that you're accustomed to, but it will be something while you get your thoughts and plans together. Have a good night, and the drinks are on me. With that, he placed a fatherly kiss on my forehead and walked away. The next morning, as I opened my eyes to the sun rays streaming through my wood blinds, I heard Bailey's last words to me from the night before. It may not be the salary that you're accustomed to, but it will be something while you get your thoughts and plans together. And it became clear that this would be a good break for me while I planned my next move. I have handled my money well throughout my career, so making less would not put me in a financial bind. With what I have saved in my 1 year severance, this salary will keep me from falling into depression mode and give me time to plan for my career development center. I rolled over and grabbed my cell phone to call Bailey. Good morning, Bailey George. He cleared his throat. Good morning, Bailey. The first thing I heard when I woke this morning was your voice. So I've decided to accept your offer, I said with excitement. I'm glad to hear that, Kimberly. I promise you won't regret it, he said, seemingly pleased with my decision. I didn't know at the time that the job would not be at Sabon, but at his cafe. I immediately began to second guess my decision, But Bailey promised me that the earning potential would be just as great as his cafe. I began work the following week and have enjoyed it. I had been at the cafe for a month before I noticed a regular customer that came in every Tuesday at 1:30 p.m. like clockwork. No matter what he ordered, he always had a cup of the mint green tea. His order of the green tea caught my attention because it was my idea to add herbal teas to the menu, and he was proof that the idea worked, so I was flattered. He always sat on my coworker Sheila's side of the counter, so I never had a chance to serve him. I would glance at him occasionally, but I have never made eye contact because his head was always buried deep into whatever he was reading. This is where the Alicia Keys video kicks in because just like most deaf in the video, he barely, if ever, looks at me. He orders his food and buries his head in a newspaper or a book. I really liked that he was a reader because I love to read myself. He typically read the intellectuals like Tavis Smiley or Cornel West, levels I haven't reached yet because I've always been a fiction reader. It's rare to see an African American man reading leisurely. So when I see one, I typically ask what they are reading. However, I never said anything to him because he appeared somewhat standoffish, and I didn't want my inquiring about his reading to look like I was flirting. That is the difference between my situation and Alicia Keys. I don't care how fine and attractive a brother is, and he is fine. If you don't have a welcoming demeanor, I keep my distance. I had been at Bailey's for 4 months and going through the same routine every Tuesday at 1:30 p.m. with my mystery man. When I noticed him reading one of my favorite books, In Search of Satisfaction, by one of the world's greatest authors, J. California Cooper, I absolutely love the woman's work. I couldn't help myself. I had to say something, and looking back, I'm truly glad I did. So that was an introduction into that story, which has a really cute little twist and ending to it. So I hope you enjoyed it. Any questions or anything? Yvette, you said is that Spike Lee's wife and her friend? Who are you talking about? All right. So, again, I want to thank everybody, the co-authors. No, the co-authors are I did a podcast on them. It's I cannot think of their names. It's two ladies. Let me check real quick and I can tell you. I can tell you. It is who is it? It is ooh, it was I didn't do it in that. I'll let you know. I'll let you know it because they wrote the book. Is it I don't want to. Was Trying to Sleep in the Bed You Made by the two ladies, or was that BB Moore Campbell? I cannot think. But Yvette, I'll let you know. Yeah, because I cannot think of their names, but they're two friends and they've written several pretty good books together. So that's what I was meaning. Any other questions for me? So I hope that me reading the first story, garnered some interest for you. Again, the books are out on Amazon. Love, Patience, and Time. Jasmine Jackson that's my pen name. And I'm honestly, I have a draft of another book in that whole theme of getting back to love. But this one, I want to write a book. This one, I want to be about African American women, kind of like we are and like I am with my girlfriends. And this one will be more about us getting back to loving each other, being the Black women that loved and supported each other. So that's what I want to do with this one, but it's going to be juicy though. And so what I tried to do also in this book was stay away from all of the drama. God rest his soul, Eric Jerome Dickey just passed. And if I read any, it would have been just one of his books. But I know he was kind of in that vein when, the self-published authors were really picking up, and he wrote, several series of books. And some of them were just, after a while, they all, to me, became in that same mindset. It was always about somebody getting cheated on and another woman and da 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 da, and all the drama, that we're taught to believe exists in relationships. And that's why I stayed away from in all my stories. That's why I kind of kept them short as well, because I wanted to stay away from all of the drama. Because again, I wanted to get us back to loving, get us back to, just being with each other and being happy, and releasing some of all the drama that sometimes happens in our relationship. So if you don't have your copy, I hope you will go ahead and order it. And if you do have your copy, pick it back up and read one of the books. I mean, I always think that it's me, but my stories make me smile. And the people that I have spoken to that have read it, they say the same thing. My friend and manicurist was telling me that it reminded her of a relationship she had, with the guy, a past relationship, but the good things about it. So, but anyway, I just want to thank everybody for joining me, and reach out to me. I have a podcast. And so another thing that I'm going to try to start doing weekly now, I'm going to start doing weekly, is I'm going to do my podcast lives. So in my podcast, Reading to Feed the Mind, I talk about the books that I've read. I've interviewed several self-published authors. I'm trying to build myself up to reach for the larger authors. But in my next live episode, I'm going to talk about, I have episodes that I've written out that's called Did You Know? And this is basically about people who we've seen and we know so well in other industries, but come to find out they're authors. So in my next next live podcast, I'm going to discuss Eric LaSalle. I don't know how many people know that this man has written like two books. He has a novella. I think that's what you call them. It's a short story that introduces the series, and then he has two books in his series already, because I read both of them and they are really good. So in my next live episode next Wednesday, I'm going to do them Wednesdays at 7 p.m. live, and I'll send out reminders. I'm going to be talking about Eric LaSalle's books, and I got a chance to meet him. Really sweet man. And he talked about his books and, and everything. So I'll share all of that with you. So next week, same time, and I will send out the invites to have a live discussion about the Eric LaSalle. And if you have read his book, I would love for you to, think of some stuff to kind of talk about. If you know that he had it and you've read one of them, please join me so that we can discuss it. But anyway, that's all, y'all. Thank you so much again. It didn't last as long as I thought, but that's okay because it's virtual. And you all are chatting. You're not in the room with me, like if we had done it on Zoom, but that's fine. So thank you all again for joining. Everybody stay blessed. We're going to pray this whole capital mess goes under and we can have better days in 2021. So take care. So Carla, you want to read the Eric LaSalle, or you want to read Reading to Feed the Mind? Let me know. Ping me afterwards, Carla, and I'll get you a copy if you're talking. Okay, yes. Please do order my book on Amazon, y'all. Please. That'll get my numbers up on Amazon as well. So thank you again, y'all, for joining. And y'all have a good night. Leave a comment or text me for those who have my number. All right. Stay blessed. Bye. All right.